So these guys essentially lost almost all of their capital. So they're bankrupt. And the reason they're bankrupt, they didn't do anything about their interest rate risk. I mean, as long as those deposits remain there, there was no insolvency risk. Anytime one of their customers came, wanted their money, they had money in the deposits and they gave them money. Or you could use your bonds and fund them in the repo market. Do you guys know what a repo market is? No, it's repurchase. I mean, for car loans, yes, that's repossession. Banks a lot of times finance their uh, long-term treasury bonds, especially through overnight repo market. Basically, it's a secured overnight lending transaction. I have $100 billion worth of bonds, and I go to another bank in the Fed system. I say, how about you lend me $100 billion tonight? I'm going to give these bonds to you as a collateral, but tomorrow I promise to buy them at a slightly higher rate. That's the repurchase. It's basically a collateralized loan. That's it. Now, when the rates are stable, this is not a problem. Whether I do this repo at 100 billion or 90 billion doesn't matter. Now, I have those and I need to fund, and it demands on my cash flow. So I need to take my bonds to the repo market to be able to get that cash so that I can pay my clients. Because those guys want their money for whatever reason. As you know, customer is always right, especially in the US. When the value of the bond goes down, you can no longer get $100 billion for those bonds as a loan in the repo market. You can only borrow 80. What's going to happen to the 20? If your clients started increasing their withdrawals, which they kind of did, you can't come up with that cash. They actually tried to raise capital, extra $2 billion. There was no demand. So they went down. And funny thing, these guys pretty much knew it was coming. About 6 months before this, we gave them the advice that you guys should start using. There are instruments that we're going to talk more on Thursday. I don't want to go in there yet. Using short-term interest rate futures, you can actually hedge or immunize interest rate risk of bond portfolios, right? If there is an instrument that pays you when interest rate goes up, it makes up for the loss, right? In fact, there are such instruments. In the old days, they used to be called Eurodollar futures. They were essentially forward interest rate transactions on 3 months. Now we have the strips, not strips, I'm sorry. They're called, I don't remember it now. Hard drive isn't full yet. I'm going to fill it back on. Because of issues with LIBOR, SOFR futures, secured overnight financing rate. But either way, if you go short on those contracts, as interest rates go up, they actually pay you money. You're making a bet that interest rates are going to go up. Or if you want to bet that interest rates are going to go down, you go long on those contracts. So there are financial instruments that allows you to immunize, not necessarily all of it, but quite a bit of such interest rate risk changes. There are even futures contracts on the bonds themselves. They tend to be somewhat complicated. It's easier to do the standard, what you want to call short-term futures management, but it's available. He suggested that you guys should do it because we said you actually have deposit concentration risk. They didn't have too much risk in terms of default or anything like that, or their business risk was negligible. So if something happens and your clients started taking out their funds, you guys are going to go insolvent. We said this on the report. Now, here's how we knew later that they knew this was coming. About 2 weeks, no, 1 week before the bank went down, there were two transactions by two insiders. Okay. These guys had stock options to buy the stock at $100. They exercised these options and they sold them in the market for around 250 or so. Okay. It's all right, no problem. But about a year before that, this stock's shares were $600. Okay. These guys exercised the right that they did not deem worthy when the stock was 600. They exercised it when it was less than 300. They knew it was coming. Technically, to me, that's insider trading, but nobody ever did anything about it. In fact, the CEO, I think, made out with over $20 million out of that deal alone. The bank went down, but CEO made out like bandits. And this guy basically turned down $50 million a year ago. He could have made $50 million on that trade a year ago. He chose not to, but 1 week before the bank went down, he pocketed 20 million bucks. They simply chose not to. I mean, they're again doing some business now. In fact, my friend is trying to get a new deal with the new owners. So if he does, I'll probably play a lot more role in their interest rate risk management stuff. I did that for a living when I was in the industry. So that sort of stuff important. I mean, that bank did not go down because they were a bad bank. They were greedy. They figured, we're going to make good money from these bonds. We have a lot of business. Why should we worry about it? Oh, this is why you worry about it. There's an old saying in risk management. You guys do know that. Have you guys ever seen a black swan? Anybody? Well, almost all swans are white. That does not mean there are not black swans. Okay? These are called black swan events. They are extremely unlikely to happen, but when that happens, they're extremely destructive. 2008 was a black swan event. I mean, there's a confluence of a lot of stuff. There were also issues with not following things like convexity, which we're going to talk about on Thursday. Because how much hedge you're going to do depends on the duration, but that duration also depends upon the level of interest rates. So as interest rates go up and up, duration actually goes down, everything else being same, which means you don't have to immunize as much. So you have to change those as well. So it's a very, even though it's called passive management, it's actually very active management. So on Thursday, we're going to look at the immunization of overall passive bond portfolios. And we will also look at the active portfolio management, especially making choices between different maturities, slopes of the yield curves, and all that sort of stuff. All right. I'll see you guys Thursday. I'll post the recording sometime tomorrow.